What, the
In an email. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll take a look, thanks.
Hey, Mary, this is Veronica. I have the tiger masks that you ordered. Do you want me to drop it off at the high school this week?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I was wondering where those were and how I was going to get them. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. Terry says we're a go. All right, Terry, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Return to School Steering Committee. I'd like to start by introducing everyone. I'm Pat Hopkins, Superintendent of Schools. Becky Fless, School Board Chair and Co-Chair. Becky, can you say hi?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Veronica Babcock, School Board Vice Chair.
Hello.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Alicia Morris, Director of Special Services. She had another commitment and could not be here this afternoon. Karen Moody, the Laura E. Richards Principal.
Hello, everybody.
Gabe Dostey, Director of Operations.
Hello, everyone.
Jared Dumas, Gardner Area High School Assistant Principal.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Nate Stubert, the Athletic Director.
Hello, everybody.
Katie Gould, the Helen Thompson Principal.
Hi, everyone.
Dean Hall, Middle School Teacher and Teacher Association President.
Hello.
Mary Whitten, Gardner Area High School Science Teacher and Department Head.
Hi, everyone.
Patsy Adams, she is a 5th grade teacher over at the Pittston Randolph Consolidated School.
Hi, everybody.
We have Michelle Ayotte, who is a parent and due to a work conflict cannot be here today. And Molly Rogers, another parent.
Hello.
Hi, Molly. And we have Denise Osgood, our Pandemic Resource Coordinator.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Great. Well, thank you all. Appreciate you being here. Before we went on camera, we were just briefly talking that this is going to be our final meeting of the steering committee. We've worked hard all summer, and we are at a place where we feel like we have completed the work that was necessary for this particular committee. We have a school board meeting coming up this week. And so any sort of final decisions that need to be made regarding our return to school plan can be made by them on Thursday. And then there's another follow-up meeting the following Thursday. But with students returning on the 8th, with staff who returned today, our building administrators are just out straight preparing their buildings for the return of students. And that's where their focus needs to be. So this will be the last meeting, but thank you all. I really appreciate you giving your time and being a part of this process. It's been a valuable process. I really appreciated the input. I feel like we as a district have developed a more thorough, comprehensive return to school plan as a result of having so many voices and so much feedback on the front end of our plan. So thank you all. Your time really has been truly valuable. So to get us started,
Pat, I do want to make one request, Pat. I did send out an email, and I'm just going to, as we close out this formal process, if you are a chair of a subcommittee, if you could be sure in the action sheet form that there are at least 3 priority items that with a date that were completed or a date you anticipate it being completed and pending, just so that I can go back and record the historical work. There has been such a tremendous amount of work, and that would just keep it very simple. If you can just, if you're a chair, go in and make sure there are at least 3 priority items in there, action items, in which the date of completion or the date you anticipate, and I'll do the follow-up. As Pat said, you need to concentrate on the opening of schools, so that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Denise. And some of you have already done this work. You've already
Yeah.
been filling out the form, but there are a few committees where they haven't had an opportunity yet to complete the form. And that's the form that Angela had created probably about 5 weeks ago and distributed to every committee, just as a way of kind of structuring our work to make sure that we knew what needed to be done and what decisions had not yet been made. So if you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to us and we will certainly help you. So getting us started with committee updates then, let's turn to Karen Moody, who is the Resource Committee Chair, along with Sarah Bolduc-Ignaziak. And Karen's committee, this particular committee's work will not end at the conclusion of this month. This work is going to be shifted over to Denise as the pandemic response coordinator to help oversee the purchase of the items that are still yet to be ordered. So Karen, if you can give us an update to where things stand today, that would be appreciated.
Sure. So I ended up meeting with Andrea Dish. The form that I had done last week did not include all of the requisitions. And then when we looked at the ledger even closer, it would not break out the different subcategories into individual purchases. So huge shout out to Ginger Shaw, Sarah Bolduc-Ignaziak, Amanda Bullock, and Andrea Dish. They created another form that has all of it in there. It matches up to purchase orders and all of the numbers match up. So I'm going to share that with you right now. So let me just share my screen. And it'll be very easy to look at, I promise. Okay. Pat, I can't see anybody. Is this? Can you see this?
Yes, yeah. Thank you.
All right. So what you'll see in the far left corner is the actual purchase order, the cost of the item, which task it was assigned to in ADS, the amount paid to date, whether it was ordered or to be ordered, any questions or comments that are going on as far as the order is happening, the date that it was ordered, and then the item description. So you'll see here at the top, so we have way up here, these are the desks. Here's plexiglass. Here are the sprayers for sanitation. This one we still need to talk about as far as the OA system from Siemens. Box fans, the liquid storage cabinets. These are also storage cabinets. These are the ones for furniture to go into. Here are the water bottle fillers. So these are all done to facilities. These are more cleaning supplies. Gabe ordered white tables for each school. I believe he ordered 10 per school. Here's more sanitation supplies for the high school. Here's the signage. All that signage should be showing up any day now. Floor tape to help mark off the 3 and 6 foot distances. The ice mat. Okay, now we switch over to food service. So included in food service, the ice mats. Here are the heating cabinets for each school. Then it switches over to health. Here are the thermometers. Those are the touch-free thermometers. A lot of clear masks have been ordered for different purposes and different staff. So here's some. So here's the nurse. So this is why that line last week was so big. So right now, nothing has been moved over to the CARES Act at all. Everything is going into the CRF grant until that's all figured out. So I just want to let you know that Andrea has it in here for right now. Some more, let's see, these are the wipes that we ordered. These are the gowns that we ordered. Again, because these are back ordered, we tried to get some in hand. These are the oximeters for the nurses. and the stethoscopes that were approved, some more clear masks. Here, more clear masks. And then we switch over to instruction. The lanyards are here. So I got an email today that I need to go pick up the lanyards. We have some art supplies. I need to just update everybody. This order that was submitted was only for Pittston School. So Pat has approved art supplies for 3 of the other elementary schools, and I'll share that in a second. These are the flexible cushions, flexible seating options, those padded cushions and sit spots. Here are the art supplies for the LER, for LER. We have another one coming for Riverview. The hard plastic tags were ordered on Friday. Again, those are those tags that will go on book bags and backpacks to let bus drivers and staff know if a child is in cohort A or B. And then here is Denise's salary. And then here is all the technology that has been ordered from Terry. Terry has put all of these in here. I'm not going to read them all. Then the other thing that I shared with a message to Pat, when I was meeting with Andrea, she's really concerned about if we're paying hourly staff for the committee work this summer, and also the substitute teaching staff, just wondering if we're going to have a line that we can kind of put some money aside to pay substitutes for the school year. Now the things on the bottom have been approved, except for the ventilation part. But we were just waiting to see what ventilation was going to be before we actually hit go on the orders. So there's just a few things that have not gone yet. We're waiting just to hear what we're going to do with ventilation, and then we're going to let those go. The cafeterias for the middle school, Gabe did have a conversation with the middle school principal, John Lapierre, and they are not going to get those. So that's coming off totally. So here we are at the bottom. So the grand total for things that have been ordered up to Friday that have gone through ADS, the grand total is $691,026.29. The amount that has been paid for right now is $30,761. So left to be paid is down at the bottom, the $660,085.29. So I hope that helps. And I'm just going to do one more thing. So this is the to be done. So some things that have come through. Chad Kempton has requested some materials to build benches. This is the total for the art teachers. I've had a few teachers who have put in some receipts to me for lap desks that they've either purchased or built. And then some more disposable masks were asked for kitchen staff and OTPT. They're afraid that what's coming from the state isn't going to be enough. So these amounts come up to $3,675. And we have not ordered the additional nurse equipment, such as the beds that they were asking for. I have a utility cart, so I'm waiting to hear exactly what needs to be ordered from that list. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Karen. That was very clear. It's also a reminder about how easy it is to spend $1.6 million, right? It sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not when you start buying all the supplies that you need. So we'll have to monitor that closely. When we created the budget for the CRF grant, which we're in the process of submitting to the Department of Education, I don't recall the exact amount off the top of my head, but we did put in a chunk of money to cover personnel. Because we don't know exactly what we're going to need. So I don't remember, Denise, maybe you do. We put in, I think, 500,000.
Yeah, it was Angela had done some calculations, but we really increased that. Hers, I think, was it certainly wasn't anywhere near that. but I think it is important to capture the substitute, the long-term substitute, and that work that's coverage specific to the coronavirus needs. So that is something that I'll work with Andrea on. But I think that might be more substantial than we think, even. So that will give us some flexibility, but we certainly want to monitor that. So that's helpful.
Thank you. Questions for Karen? Karen, thank you very much. That spreadsheet was great. It was very helpful, and thank you and your team for all of your time. You and Sarah spent a lot of time overseeing this work, and I really appreciate all that you did to assist us in making sure that these items were here in our district prior to the arrival of students. I know it was hard. So I just want you to know how grateful and appreciative we are.
Yes, that's very helpful. And Pat, the calculation for was just from Angela's calculation was 186.5, and we put it to 500,000. Really in that range to just cover us and to give us the flexibility. So thank you. I found that spreadsheet also. I just found it very clear and succinct. So that's going to be very helpful going forward.
And so in terms of the grant, we have to submit the grant with an estimate of how much we think we're going to spend. Then we have to, by the end of this month, then we have to go back in next month and we need to finalize it. And we have to be more specific and concrete. So we'll be doing that work. So as we kind of figure out in the next month, the number of staff members that we're able to employ and that we are going to employ to help us do this work, we'll be able to flesh that out and provide a clearer update on the actual cost. But thank you again, Karen, really appreciate it. All right, Jared, food service. You and your team have been working hard to try to come up with a system that works to provide food to students during the day who are in session, while also making sure that students who are at home receiving their education remotely also have access to a meal. So can you give us an update as to where things stand with you?
Sure. Working on this summer has been really interesting because what I've learned is the food service aspect of things is probably about as complex logistically as anything that we're trying to figure out. And a big part of the reason why is because it's built on so many unknowns. We're starting to get some information. Luckily, we got some, I feel like, pretty good feedback on Angela's survey. I call it Angela's survey, the survey that Angela helped to design and push out. And we got some useful data that we're now finally starting to sift through. A very cursory glance at the data shows us that a significant amount of people who responded are planning are not necessarily at this time planning on using meals during the remote days for their children. And so while we want our food service, to be available, and we want our nutrition program to be available for people who need it, we're also in a way, it's starting to make the task of getting meals out to folks a little less daunting based on the numbers we're seeing, knowing that, of course, that's a moving target and it's subject to change. But Linda had a chance to meet with her nutrition staff today and started to talk about the logistics with some of them, maybe for the first time, really down to the nuts and bolts of what's going to happen. And she got really good feedback from her staff. And the overwhelming feeling that she reported to me was that her staff felt like this was something they could make work, which was really nice to hear. And I can't say enough about the folks that work in nutrition services and how much they did this spring and how much they're looking at taking on this fall. And it's all very encouraging. What we're doing right now is sifting through the data, which is a little bit tricky because we have to try and sort out who is, we were trying to look by building, who is planning on being hybrid, who is planning on being remote, and of those sets, who is planning on accessing meals and who is not at this time planning on that, to try and project kind of how many meals Linda's staff may be looking at in each building. And that's going to help us tweak and kind of finalize our process. The challenge of that, of course, is that we didn't get full responses from everybody. So we're going to basically try and run some projections on what we think the high end looks like, so that we know what our capacity could be. The next step, and I realized today as I was talking to Linda that there's still work to be done. The next step is designing and making available a survey that we will be able to use, almost like a sign-up form that we're going to be able to use with our families, so that they know each week we're going to contact them with the form that asks them to give us their student name and what school they're in and what cohort they're in, and they'll be able to access by their cohort the meals for the upcoming days. So they can go in and use check boxes to select which meals they want to be receiving for lunches and the days for breakfast. And that's going to allow us to have another set of data that Linda's staff can sort in each building and say, for Wednesday we need 50 meals, and for Thursday we're going to need 30 meals, and for Friday we're going to need 17 meals, or what have you. Then they will need to build individual meals for individual students based on the different days they select. It's going to be quite a logistical challenge, and I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to lean on technology a little bit and let these forms and some of these spreadsheets that we're developing help make the work a little smoother. But we know there'll be some challenges, so that's kind of the work coming up. I did have a chance, I told you folks last week, I'd met with half of the principals. I can say now I've talked with everybody, and each building is kind of finalizing what meal pickups will look like for the hybrid students. We are still sticking with our Tuesday and Friday plans, and we are still working out whether we're going to put meals in individual classrooms or in a central location. I know Katie, when I met with Katie, we had talked about how she would be able to funnel families to a particular part of her parking area where we could get meals out to the kids, because that was the best way possibly to do it for her. Whereas I know Vicki was talking about how to move students through an area where they would collect their meals on their way to their parents' cars. And at the different grade levels, it's going to look a little bit different, with the older kids being a little more self-sufficient. And I know some of the younger kids, we're still working out how to help them, whether it's going to be parents coming into the buildings and collecting the meals. We're working on that, but the goal is still to have all the hybrid meals go home with students, with them already being in the buildings. Once we break down the survey data, we'll know more clearly what we want to do with our remote learners. We had talked about using Wednesday as a pickup day for remote families to avoid the after school, getting the buses out the door and getting the hybrid students out the door with their food. But we where the numbers are relatively low, we're going to sort out with Linda whether it makes sense to do it on Wednesday, or whether, since we're already going to kind of be in meal production mode on Tuesdays and Fridays, that it may make sense to just find a way to do it. It's really going to depend on the numbers and coordination with our principals and what they think they can honestly do in terms of not overfilling and clogging up their parking lots at the end of a school day. So there's still plenty to sort out. We were diving into this data today. We're going to finish trying to pull it all apart tomorrow and get some rough projections that we can start using with our principals and with Linda to get the work going. And we'll just continue to refine it over the next week or so, knowing that we are up against it and we really need to get this done.
Thank you, Jared. You guys really have done a tremendous amount of work, and I know that there are so many logistical aspects to providing meals. It's just overwhelming. When we start having private conversations, I'm overwhelmed at all that you're trying to think of and balance. So I really appreciate the work of you, of Linda, and your entire committee. Kind of open it up for questions from the committee. Others have anything that they want to ask of Jared?
So Jared, is it correct that, first of all, I appreciate all of the work of the committee because it really has to look different in different buildings, and that is just a puzzle. So is it possible then that we will, depending on our numbers, that the remote pickup days could be different, or are we going for something consistent across the district?
I would like it to be a decision that are you asking, is it going to look different for the hybrid students versus the remote students? Or are you saying, is how we coordinate that going to be different building to building?
Both.
Okay. I don't have a good answer for that yet, Katie. I would say that it would be my preference to have a uniform plan across the district. I mean, if we're going to do remote on a different day than the hybrid students, then that probably should be consistent K-12. But I think what we need to sort out with everybody's input is, how many hybrid meals are we talking on Tuesdays and Fridays? How many remote meals are we talking? And can we do hybrid and remote on Tuesday and not overwhelm the parking spaces and the kitchen staff? Or would it be smoother to do it in one day versus asking them to do it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday? Hybrid, remote, hybrid. You have to remember that, again, as we've talked, and you all know this now, we're asking staff to prepare multiple days worth of food, so is it easier to, if the food's all made by Tuesday, is it easier for Linda's folks to put aside enough meals for Wednesday, keep it cold, and then just feed it out to folks when they come to pick it up? Or is it going to make more sense to get it all out the door on one day? I think we just don't have an answer to that yet, but if you have any questions related to, if that's like I ask because what I want to do is this, we should chat about what you're thinking. Any ideas from principals are more than welcome at this point, because I'd rather hear what your thoughts are now and smooth out any potential bumps in the road than have us come up with a great idea that doesn't work when we throw it out to everybody. So.
Right. Got it. And we'll look closely at those numbers, and then there will be some variability there from week to week, right? But I do think we'll kind of slip into a sort of a predictable pattern once we get into a flow. It's the planning for it all that, as we know, is a challenge. Thanks, Jared.
Sure.
Other questions of Jared? Okay. Oh, Karen.
Sorry, just to throw out an idea. One of the things that came up in a meeting that I had was maybe if there was a way, because I have the land of the little people.
I know you do.
So possibly having maybe a cooler. I know no one's allowed to sit behind the driver. So if a cooler could be there and have the children's lunches or breakfast in the cooler, and as they got off the bus, they could be handed to a parent on the way off the bus. We're just concerned about little ones doing a laptop and any take-home materials, plus their lunch bag, snack bag, and then in the winter, all of their winter gear. So, and then all the lunches. So just really concerned about that. So maybe we could look at.
Yeah, you have sorry to cut you off. You have every reason to be concerned about that. And I know with the youngest ones, parents coming in and signing them out, or however that works, that's one thing. But, the bus issue is one that's still a challenge. And one of the things that I want to try and get my head around is how many of our students are taking meals and are riding the bus, and what grade are they? Because if we know, for example, that it's 3 or 4 kids on a particular bus run, I think that is something we can definitely look at. And one of the purchases we made for the food service committee were the ice packs that Linda was planning on using for the possibility that we would transport meals. And I think that if it's possible and it plays out the way it may, that asking our drivers to take that extra second and help with that will take a little training and a little getting used to, just like any of it. But that would potentially be a really helpful way of getting some of the meals home for our littlest kids who, like you said, I mean, asking a 50-pound child to carry 15 pounds of food is you know, a lot. So I get it. Thank you for that
Well,
idea.
And we're getting into transportation a little bit here, but a conversation we've had administratively that we still need to finalize is bus aids. Having bus aids, at least for the first few weeks on the bus, to try to get a system in place. And that particular person could help students to gather their food, gather their things. Once a bus driver is in their seat and the bus is running, they cannot leave their seat. You know, if there's an emergency, you know, and they have to pull over, that's something different. But as long as a student is just disembarking, they're not able to get up. There's a safety hazard with that. And one of the things that you and I discussed, Jared, is, you know, just to make it easier on our nutrition staff, maybe we don't allow adult purchases of lunches this year.
Yep.
That they prepare lunches only for our students, and all of the adults in the building will have to be responsible for bringing their own lunches.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a chat about that at the end of the last week, and I apologize, it got away from me a little bit, but I'll reach out to Linda tomorrow, and we'll try. You know, we should make a final decision on that now. And I know you said that, and you're correct. It is a little bit of a paradox, because it's certainly not the majority of the meals that they're making, but it's enough that it adds up. And you know, we may, at least initially in the start of the year, look at asking staff to bring their own meals, and finding out, you know, if we have capacity and things are going smoothly, we can always back off that. But it would certainly be something that would help us make sure that our kids are getting their meals and everything's running smoothly. So we'll try to come up with a final decision on that in the next day or so, and make a recommendation to you, Pat, and then you can have that. Let's do it before Thursday, so you can have that conversation if you need to with anybody else.
Okay, that sounds great, Jared. Thank you. Mary.
And that would be something you need to tell the staff, you know, sometime by mid next week, so they can plan on that.
I agree.
Right.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, anything else for food service? Great. Jared, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to pop over to instruction, SEL, and technology. Angela.
Hi, thank you. Last Friday, we sent out the enrollment survey to our families with the intention of closing that survey this morning at 9 a.m. The survey link remains open in case we are able to follow up with families and ask them to complete it so that the data is all in one location. As of 12 o'clock this afternoon, and after removing duplicate responses, we had 1,214 responses to our survey. We had 412 student responses for the high school out of approximately 600, 275 out of approximately 420 for the middle school, 164 out of approximately 250 for Helen Thompson, 133 out of approximately 190 for LER, 119 out of about 224 for Pittston Randolph, and 111 out of approximately 170 for Riverview. With that, with those responses, we have 197 students enrolled in the remote learning from K to 12. Remote learning is not offered for pre-K. Homeschooling, we have 21 students either enrolled or working on enrolling in homeschooling. We have 10 students across our district that have enrolled either in another district or a private school. So right now we have about 80% of our students having enrolled in either the hybrid, the remote, homeschooling, or other location. So we are still short about 20% of our student population, which is making it a little bit difficult, but certainly understandable as families are trying to make their decisions as to what to do next. So we're using this data to finalize our transportation plan. We're using this data, as you heard from Jared, to finalize our food service plan. And we're using this data to finalize our staffing for our remote learning plan, which leads me to two things. One, the survey was sent out with notification sent to families who have pre-K students, and then there wasn't a spot for pre-K. So my apologies. That was the way we created that survey, that created confusion and anxiety for some of our pre-K parents. We want you to know you're valued, and we recognize you. We didn't include you because we know the plan is a little different in pre-K. We have limited enrollment in pre-K. We have it only in 2 buildings, and we have an AM and PM session. And so I recognized that we would actually need to reach out to you separately to try to identify the transportation and food service needs. And I just figured we would do that after the pre-K, the final pre-K screening process for the last few families completes this week. It was my error in not communicating that effectively in the enrollment survey. So thank you for your patience, and thank you to the administrators for helping clarify that with families on Friday afternoon and before the weekend. The second thing that this leads me to is the remote process. It continues to be evolving, but we will have our final plans prepared for the board meeting on Thursday evening. For high school, any student enrolled in remote learning at the high school level will be live streaming into their courses following their course schedule. So that's how that will work. So if you are a remote student at the high school level, you will look at your course schedule and you will stream in based on whatever the in-person schedule is. If you are in K to 8, we have a couple different staffing structures that are being finalized, but students will have kind of a parallel learning system. So at least in the first term, we will not be live streaming students into their courses. Instead, they will have a dedicated educator who will set a schedule for families, and we'll try to release those schedules as soon as possible, but likely not until next week. But there will be a schedule. There will be regular ongoing assignments, and there will be a graduated release of screen time. So if you're in your middle school, you'll have more time on the screen than if you're a kindergartner. If you're in kindergarten, we will not be asking you to be on screen in your remote academy for 6 hours a day. We will have a much more modified schedule, but you will have staff connecting with your child and supporting new learning. I feel like there was more I was supposed to add. Schedule. Oh, we will be also, once we finalize the student list and the staff list and setting the schedules, we'll also be communicating to families how families can pick up their laptops so that they have access to this remote learning that they'll need access to, and any materials that might need to be coming from the school, like a math textbook or math manipulatives or a social studies textbook or something like that, or reading a piece of literature, that will be combined into a pack, and we will have a common pickup area. I believe we set the high school as our location for remote families to pick up. And so we'll communicate the date and the time and the procedures as soon as we finalize all of this week, now that we have much more accurate data before us. What kind of questions does this raise for you besides who's my teacher and what does the exact schedule look like?
And Angela, would you talk a little bit about the laptop pickup for students who are going to be in cohort A and cohort B? How is that going to work?
Certainly. I need some reminders, team.
So
I'm sorry.
nope, that's okay. You have a lot on your plate.
You made a plan, and I just can't recall the details.
That's okay. So just fill in the gaps for me. So the plan is for students who are in cohort A, they will arrive on September 8th and they will receive their laptops.
Correct.
And so they will receive all the training and everything that they need to be able to use their laptops. There is no school on the 9th. That's a Wednesday. And so that's a time when teachers are checking in with their students. They're doing prep time. And so for students who are in cohort B, they will get their laptops on September 8th. I'm sorry, on September 10th.
Yes, thank you. It's a lot juggling. We're juggling. Except in currently in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and the teachers are working through this week with us, but currently the thinking is for kindergarten to 3rd grade. It's really new for them to get laptops and to bring them home and bring them back to school on a regular basis. It's also new for the families to learn the new learning platform. And so we'd like to ease our K-3 or pre-K-3 families into this process by providing a little bit more in-person time in schools with the laptops, the students and the teachers, to make sure the kids are familiar with the learning platform, which is called Seesaw, and how to really use it and feel pretty fluent in it. And then release computers to homes the week of September 21st. So that would give like 2.5 weeks for students to get used to using their laptops, logging in using a QR code, knowing how to get to their learning platform and knowing how to upload materials, so that the parents didn't all have to feel responsible for figuring that out when they've never used it before. That doesn't mean children wouldn't have any learning those first couple of weeks of school when they're home. It's just some of the materials may come out looking a little different. They may be more like hard copy materials. Our intention behind that is to support families really and make them feel like they have time to learn and to digest the information we'll be sending home about the learning platform. Families can still get onto the learning platform on their phones or at-home computer devices to get family communications. So you can see what that looks like, what that feels like when students are doing work in their classroom and it gets pushed out to the families to look at, or when a teacher has a message for all the families can have a couple weeks to see what that looks like and feels like before the remote learning starts with the computer at home. It's also meant to support the teachers so that they can really have some time with those learners and get them used to those new materials. So that's where we are right now in the pre-K-3 world. We're really just trying to make sure that families don't have to be drinking from a fire hose in this process, but that instead they can ease into this. All of us together, we'll have tutorials online, we'll get you set up with your family side of the learning platform, and then we'll slowly bring you into the student side of the learning platform.
But again, for the older students,
grades 4 through 12, they will be expected to bring their laptop to school and home on a routine basis and use Google Classroom. And we will, for grades 4 through 5, where that still feels a little new, they'll be doing a lot of work in the classrooms to help them become familiar and comfortable. And therefore, we will be really conscientious about what kinds of assignments students will get in those first couple weeks, making sure they're really able to access those independently. So this is kind of a step-by-step process rather than last spring where we felt like all of a sudden we launched into this.
And I just want this to be very, very clear so anyone watching this completely understands. So if they have a child who is assigned to cohort A, that particular day, their child will receive the laptop. If they're in cohort B, they will not have a laptop, therefore they will not be able to remotely call into the classroom because they're not getting their laptop until the 10th, correct? So if you want to say technically, those in cohort B, their first day of school will technically be the 10th, whereas cohort A's first day is the 8th. Okay. Molly?
Is that similar for the remote learning? For the virtual, sorry, not remote, virtual, is the pre or K to 3? Will they be beginning 2 weeks in with their virtual curriculum?
Do you mean that like the full online group, they're not coming into school group?
Correct. Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
No, okay. I want to make sure we're saying the same thing. We anticipate that their laptop pickup will actually happen next week. And then they will be able to start school on September 8th.
Okay.
For the fully remote, only remote, not in-person students.
The administrative team talked about whether it had the capacity to distribute laptops for families with children in cohort B at the same time. But with everything going on, just did not feel like we have the capacity to have all of those families picking up their laptops the same time we're trying to provide PD for staff and put the final touches to our plans. So that's why it was decided as a district to really wait until September 10th to distribute those. So, any other questions for Angela?
This
Yes,
feels like
Molly.
a very basic question, but it's for clarification because after watching a couple of the meetings last week with principals and directors, is Wednesday a remote instruction day for cohort students?
That is a super question, and we've been working really hard on clarifying that response.
Okay.
It is a day when students will have assignments to complete. They will have work to do. It is a day where students can connect with their teachers through their office hours to get questions answered, one-on-one help or small group help during the established office hours, which will be published by the time we start school. It is not a day where they'll be live in classes and live instruction so that our teachers have time to plan.
So is there attendance or expectation, if general expectation of that day?
The general expectation is that students will log in and work on their learning plan. And there is an attendance process that we are smoothing out right now, given the remote world we're in and the distribution of laptop plan, which is making it a little bit confusing. But generally speaking, students in grades 4 through 12 will log into their homeroom or their advisory every day. There'll be a process by which they complete kind of a question of the day or a response. And then we are working under the theory that if they open their computer and log into their homeroom or advisory, there is a greater likelihood they will then log into their classes to complete their assigned work than if they didn't log in at all. So attendance is a little different than participation. Active participation is monitored a little differently. Students in grades K or pre-K to 3, the attendance procedure will be slightly different using the Seesaw learning platform, and the electronic version of that will not roll out until we roll out all the laptops. So we'll have a different version of it for the first couple of weeks, just a little parent signature, probably.
So a Wednesday is a school day?
It is a day for students to continue their learning, yes. And we are considering it a school day.
Is it different from Thursday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday? I'm sorry to I'm just really trying to understand because there's been a lot of confusion.
Yeah, well, it's all new for all of us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And part of it is we're going to get going and then we'll start to feel a little more in a groove. But At the high school level, Thursday and Friday, if students are not in person, they're streaming into their classrooms.
Yeah.
Monday and Tuesday, if students are not in person, they're streaming into the classrooms. Wednesday, there's no live streaming, but there will be assignments that they'll be working on, and we expect that they'll do
Okay.
that. So for high school, it's a little cleaner, right? To look
Right.
at.
I'm not trying to like define
Great.
loopholes or anything, but
This is how we figure it out. For 4 through 8, where there's Google Classroom, students if they go to school on Monday and Tuesday, they go to school on Monday and Tuesday. They'll know, generally speaking, what the kind of workload is for the rest of the week. They'll log in on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to their homeroom, complete their homeroom task, and then they will be expected to continue with their learning plan that's set. Some teachers that will have, there may be pre-recorded videos or tasks to accomplish or writing to do or reading to do. It depends on the content area and the teacher. But for them to be prepared for their Monday, Tuesday class, if they're cohort A, they will need to, work through their learning plan Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And there may be due dates assigned to things to help some of our learners really stay on track. Especially because this is new experience for everyone. If you're a Thursday, Friday in-person student, then that's your in-person day. And then you will have a learning plan for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And some teachers will establish, like I just said, due dates to help keep kids on track and help them get used to this new routine. But it will start with the same thing. I will log in, I will attend to my homeroom or advisory session, and then I will work on my learning plan. In pre-K to 3, that's going to roll out a little bit differently because for a couple different reasons. One, their laptops aren't going to go home till the 21st, so we'll have kind of an alternate method for the first couple of weeks. And 2, we know they're less independent. So we know in some cases it is a learning day, but we also know in some cases families are going to have to figure out what those hours look like and how to manage that. And we will have some clarity as we go through this experience and roll this out. But it's still learning. It's the best that we can accomplish, and there will be expectations, and it will follow through with what happens in person. It will prepare them for the upcoming in person so that we can make progress this year.
Angela, I do have one question. If the students in cohort A, on Wednesday, I understand that they'll log into their homeroom, whatever process that means. But on Thursday and Friday, I'll be teaching. How can they log into homeroom?
Through Google Classroom.
So it won't have to be live. On Wednesday, it'll be live. Because the way you explained it, they don't log into homeroom on Wednesday. That makes it sound like it's live.
No. The student will open up their Google Classroom into homeroom and complete the task that's assigned of them that will support their attendance procedures on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay, I guess that needs to be explained at the homeroom because we're unclear about that.
Yes.
At the middle school, we're unclear about that.
For clarity for the public, we are in day 1 of our 8 days of workshop.
Yeah.
Staff did not return until day 1. And some of these procedures were just developed last week in trying to be in accordance with whatever the state is expecting in terms of daily attendance. So the training for attendance has not yet happened. But the design for it actually came out of the middle school. So we will work with Dean especially and Jeannie and all the other middle school teachers to figure out if the plan, we'll work this week to figure out if the plan that we have for attendance, the procedures that we're outlining, we're going to try them out. We're going to practice them and see if they work effectively rather than practicing them once the students show up. And then some of these things I said, we're very fluid these days. We may have to refine slightly, but we'll be sure that by the time students show up, we are very clear and it's documented and people can see what that looks like and feels like. Just we're trying to all do this collectively and collaboratively, but there are some tricks to the trade.
Molly?
If a student is not well and is absent, are they absent, or are they able to learn remotely on an opposite cohort day? If they're a cohort A student and they're not able to come to school because they're not well, are they able to access their cohort A work? Say if you're in high school or middle school where it may be streamed, are they logging in with cohort B students at that time? Or
That's a great question.
that was a really confusing question.
I think I get it. And we kind of tried to process this in the core instruction team. If a student is supposed to be in person and they're not there, they will be marked absent. Now, there's a difference between attendance and staying on track with your learning. So they will be marked absent for the in-person day that they're supposed to be in person. Teachers will be using in grades 4 through 12 Google Classroom. So gets tricky at the high school. So students will be able, their work is being conducted remotely. So if a child wants to stay on track, just like a child being homesick from school under normal conditions will sometimes get the assignments the next day, the child actually may be able to log in and get the assignments anyway. And if they're not so sick that they can keep on track, they can do it then. And if they feel really, really yucky, they can, get caught up over the week, just like any sick child in any normal circumstance. The trick to this will be at the high school level. If they're in person, we're expecting them to be in person, but can they stream in if they're at home sick so that they don't miss the instruction? I don't know. I would think so, but I don't really know the implications of that yet.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we could mark them absent because they weren't physically there, but it would be advantageous, especially with the new requirements, that some of you, when you have a cold now, you're going to have to stay home.
Yeah.
So you might have in the past come to school because you felt okay to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it may help their instruction if they could actually come into the class virtually, but
I agree.
that's a piece that we definitely have to iron out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Becky?
we will figure that out.
And I can see some parents and some students having issues with being marked absent. I just don't feel well enough to be in school today. But I do feel well enough to sit remotely and be there. So why do I need to be absent?
Mm-hmm.
I'm there. Let me be there.
That's really good feedback. And I don't feel like I'm in a position that I know enough of all the logistics and implications to have a concrete response, but Jared is on here with us from the high school, and that's where the live streaming will be happening. Mary is a teacher at the high school and a department chair. So between the two of them and me and all the other counterparts, I'm sure in the next 7 days of work, we will need to figure this out and be clear with our families afterwards.
It's a great question you asked, Molly. I actually emailed Chad and Jackie about that very question today and said, hey, I just thought of something. What about this? And how is that going to play out? Because to Becky's point, I mean, not even I don't feel well enough to come in, but I feel well enough to work from home. I'm trying to follow the protocol that you've asked me to, and I feel more than well enough to come in, but because I have these symptoms, I'm going to stay home, and I'm willing to work from here to stay caught up and not have to do it on Thursday or whenever I get back. So it's definitely something to put our heads around, because it's going to come up a lot.
Mm-hmm. And, in addition, those elementary students who, if they're not able to come 2 days, they miss an entire week. How do they make up that work, or how do they figure out, how do they stay caught up? If parents are being asked to keep their sick child home, how do they stay caught up with in-class learning?
Yeah, Molly, that's a great concern, because we could end up going 7 or 8 days, 9 days before seeing someone, right? And that's super unfortunate, because we know how valuable in-person instruction is. That's partly why we made the investment in the learning platform that we did in those elementary grades, because we did a lot of training on it today. It's really interactive. It's easier to use for young children. And there's a lot of opportunity for like dialogue actually, rather than just typing or static language. There's a lot of ways to be really dynamic.
So will the teacher be providing that lesson when they're absent, or, some form, like, because yes, they would be capable of potentially completing it, but is it necessary? Like, are we expecting the teachers to have it available in both platforms? In both an in-person and available because you're asking a parent to keep a child home?
I think we have to work on that. I'm not sure I can be absolutely definitive. I know that this is different than a normal year. I also am not entirely clear what this looks like on a daily basis for a classroom teacher. To be managing in person, managing remote, managing who's absent, making sure that lesson is somewhere housed and recorded for a child. I think that's where our teams are going to need to work really collaboratively to support one another, that our support staff is really going to need to help out on that. And some of it is we can raise these questions and work through them in the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to just have to learn by doing in some cases. But keeping the student learning at the center, that which is the thread of your questions, right? Like if we want our families to follow these protocols, and we're going to be really, conscientious about these health and safety protocols, then we need to make sure that these students have access to their learning. And that's that balance we're going to need to try to strike.
I have heard you say, I know the 100% virtual learning is the same curriculum, but perhaps a different path through it, or a different pace maybe. But is it possible for their days to almost be flagged so they could be a resource? Not that doesn't make sense the way I just said that, but is it possible for their instruction to be flagged and available because it's the same material, but it's from a different instructor?
I don't know yet.
It's all great work.
You're raising really great questions. On that, I just don't know yet until all these little tiny details come together, but they're great questions.
Mary?
So Google Classroom, and I just looked it up on my iPad while you were talking, doesn't track when a student logs into Google Classroom, unless that was a new change, but what I'm seeing is not. So they would physically have to do something like for advisory at the high school or what have you to know that they actually logged in or got into Google Classroom. So that's a piece we need to keep in mind.
Right, and that's actually one of the attendance procedures for the advisors in the homerooms for us to process this week and see if the plan can't become reality, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be a task, it would be a form or a task that has to be assigned for it to work. They just can't just log in and show up and then go into their next thing. They have to do something, and then it can stamp that.
Okay.
But we're trying to make it as simple as possible.
A lot of great questions. Anything else for Angela?
Those are such hard questions, Angela.
Yeah, I'm sorry we don't have all the answers yet, but we will get there.
Well, and you can't think of every single thing, so this is really good. And as I'm listening to Molly, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, as a mom, if I choose to keep my student home because I'm following your rules, but they can do their work, let's make it somehow. Let's find a way that we can make it work.
Access to learning is our goal, right? That's the whole reason we're trying to access to learning and staying safe and healthy. Those two.
And we all know that that's what you're trying to do. That's the goal. We all get that.
Yeah.
Thank you for continuing to do that.
Sam, while there are still questions, there are certainly questions, and this is not going to be perfect moving forward. I wish I could say that it will be. The amount of work and the level of detail and specificity that Angela and her entire committee has created to put forth this plan is just remarkable.
It is.
Anyone listening, I think you can kind of grasp how challenging it is to think of every single possible question or nuance to this plan. It's incredibly challenging, but she has had the support of so many staff members, board members, all of you administrators. And I just want to thank Angela and her entire team. I know that this has been a stressful time, and you guys have just done a remarkable job. The answers to some of these other questions, they will come. We will find our way. We will work it out. We are 90% there. And probably the most stressful part is figuring out that last 10%, but we will get there. So thank you all. Appreciate it. And Angela needs to leave our meeting. So this is, again, your opportunity. Any last questions? With school starting soon, there are lots of phone calls and things that need to happen behind the scenes. So she's gonna disconnect and go do some other work. Anything else for Angela? Awesome. Angela, thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so that brings us to Gabe. Gabe, can you give us an update on transportation and on facilities?
Absolutely. For transportation, we did meet last week with the committee and just trying to finalize things and go over some of the last minute issues. So the state did send us guidance about the shields on the school buses behind the drivers and beside, and really the information put forth. We've really decided amongst the group of us that if we all have to wear a face covering, and most other districts in the state are not really doing any sort of shield. And the shield didn't enclose the whole driver area. It was just basically a piece behind the driver and just to the side of the driver. That really, we didn't see that it was necessary to move forward with putting those dividers there. We did go over a couple of the other pieces on the school bus, which was the seating, and made sure they understood where the markings were. And so if we're definitely, they were in favor of having an aid on there, especially to start the school year. And if we see partway through the school year, we can phase it out, or if we see everything's going well, at least for the high school, middle school grades, for sure. They could see phasing that out with once they find a routine and they feel comfortable with the students getting on and off the bus. But they did have the concern with the elementary students not knowing where they're sitting, and again brought up with Jared brought it up with the food distribution, that they could be the ones to help out, especially the young kids, with distributing the food to the younger students and help them to get off the bus if needed. That definitely would be a huge help with that, and the aid that's on there where the driver can't get up to help out. So definitely that was a big must for them to have the aid on to help with that. Really, there wasn't much else. We're just really waiting on the last data to come in, and so we can get the final numbers to divide the cohorts and see how the routes are going to be able to run. We're hoping we can keep them very similar to the way they're at, and just split between cohort A and B with the routes that we have. These last numbers will really be the tell if we are able to do that or not. So definitely that'll help out. Yeah, go ahead, Denise.
Just to clarify, for the bus drivers, our district will not be using, they're not mandated to have the curtain or the divider around them, is what you're saying?
Right, exactly.
But they for PPE, they will wear a mask and a shield?
It's just required for them to wear the face mask. It's not a requirement that's in there to wear the face shield.
Okay.
I do have face shields if any of them want to wear them. We have them. We've tried a couple different ones and they haven't seemed to have any of the glaring issues. Of course, we're not in the cold weather, so we're not sure how it's going to be in the cold, if it's going to fog up. So that's something we'll definitely have to keep monitoring for sure.
So minimally, they will wear a mask, and like the remainder of our employees, most likely, unless there's some medical reason, they won't be wearing a shield. And if they did wear a shield, it would need to go below the chin and over to the ears. And then I think last time you said the sanitizer will be available on the bus as long as it's away from a flammable ignition, or that will be available.
Right, that is correct. And that's something that we just received the dispensers in. So we'll be able to mount those on the buses this week. And that's something that drivers this week are going to help out on, is to make sure everything's set up on the buses. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, sure.
So Gabe,
yeah, go ahead, Pat.
further clarification here. So while we're choosing not to put any sort of divider around the bus driver, it's really not our choice. We lease our buses from Sear Bus, and they, for liability reasons, they are not allowing anything to be installed around the bus driver, correct?
Yeah, that's the companies that install these are really worried about the liability piece. So they're not willing to take that liability on, nor is Sear putting them on any of their other buses that they have. So that is the reason, and I think you'll find that across a lot of the districts. That's the way they're looking at it too.
Yes, I'm hearing the same thing, but I just wanted to be clear. It's not just because we were choosing not to do it, that the companies that we contract with for our buses are not allowing it. They're not doing it.
Okay.
And that is the theme that I'm hearing across the state. Other bus contractors are not doing it either. It's not just Sear. Then one other clarification, Gabe. So we've talked about the number of students who can be on the buses. So if we have 24 seats, we've said, well, we could fit 24 students on, but we now have to keep the seat behind the driver vacant. And if we have a bus aide, so there's another adult, we're now looking at the maximum number of students that we can transport on a bus at any one time at 22, correct?
That is correct. And that's the average on the buses. Some of the buses have one less row. So some buses were down to 20 on a school bus. Yeah. But we're looking to, even if we have to change a couple of the buses that the drivers use to make sure that they're in a larger bus, that's our plan to try to work that out. And some of that may be dependent on their bus run that they have to see what the capacity is. So that's why it's important for us to get the last numbers in to make sure we can divide our routes out.
Right. Molly?
I'm assuming the seat behind the bus driver has to be vacant because of a 6-foot rule. So
Yes.
does that apply to the aide as well? And do you lose another seat at that point? Or how does the aide assist in the bus and maintain the 6-foot distance? I think it's very necessary, and
I know the rest, the guidelines for the bus are, as long as everyone is wearing a mask, it's 3 to 6 feet. For the bus driver, it has to be 6 feet. So we feel like we have a little flexibility with the aide, so that the aide is able to help the other students get situated on the bus. I can't explain why the bus driver has to be 6 feet and it's okay for others to be 3 to 6. I don't know, but those are the specifications.
It may, Pat, be similar to the classroom, in which the student peer, it's the 3 to 6, but the adult is to be 6 feet away from students and other adults. So I think, Molly, that is a good question. It may necessitate more space for the aid. I would have to, I'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
And it does say whenever possible. They
Yeah.
always have.
Yes, it does.
Right. So we have that out if we're not able to do it. But other transportation questions for Gabe. All right. So Gabe, facilities.
Okay, facilities. I'll just give you kind of an update. We didn't meet. Our group didn't meet. I was really busy last week and not able to. But I think most everything that, you know, we had most everything taken care of it and discussed. I did get the shipping containers came in on Friday. So those are all set up now at each of the schools. So they've started loading stuff into them already at some schools. Those are there. I took also the order of the window fans for the couple schools. So those are now being distributed out. I took the last shipment of them actually this morning. The floor tapes come in. So supplies are rolling in, and we're finally getting some of those supplies that we've ordered quite a ways out. So they are coming in. So it's just a matter of once they come in, I can bring them to the schools. We found that some of them are going to the central office because that's the address that they had. So it's not the easiest to have a trailer truck pull up to the central office and think they're going to unload a pallet of material. So we've had the office staff there has worked very well at redirecting them to a place that we can unload them. So that's worked out pretty good. So things are moving along. Again, hopefully the signage will all be in this week so we can get that in place and installed. Same with the floor tape. So it's just a matter of getting everything in. We are waiting on the water fountains. Those are scheduled to be in tomorrow or Wednesday. So as soon as they're in, we've already taken the old fountains off the wall. So it's just a matter of putting the new ones in for the bottle fills. So we'll have those in place. I checked again the state PPE site, and the only thing that was available is medium-sized gloves today. So there's nothing else available again. So definitely, if we haven't ordered the things that we need by now, I'm not sure if we're going to get them all. So that's something I check daily. So I'll keep up and making sure we check the listing of available items and keep up on that.
Gabe, I had two questions on the facility. Yep. Do you know with Siemens where we fit now that we've approved the negative pressure rooms?
Sure.
Do you know any estimate of where that's on the schedule that allowed us to be on the schedule?
So as far as scheduling, I don't have the answer for that. We need to get the signed proposal out. So I have sent that over to, I believe I forwarded it to Pat and Andrea for that. It is a little more than the $100,000 that I originally thought. It's actually $113 and a couple dollars or so. I don't have the exact figure in front of me. So as long as, I don't know if we need another approval to get that signed and out, but that'd be great if we can get that over to them and they can start ordering items for the isolation rooms.
We do not need another approval for that. I don't believe, I wasn't clear, Gabe, that that's what you were asking.
Oh, okay.
For that to be signed. So we will take care of that ASAP. I'm just pulling it up now to make sure I have it. I do. So I'll make sure this gets printed and we will get that squared away.
And the one other question that I had, Gabe, we may get questions on the national news. There was a recommendation for schools across the country to use some type of MERV, they called it, filter, to reduce the smaller aerosol particulate matter in schools. And is that, can you just comment, do you know anything about that? Or will we have change in filters in our schools as they look at the schools across the board?
Sure. So yeah, I can talk a little bit about the MERV rating. So they're saying we should look at MERV 13 filters. Yeah. So the issue with that is our systems are not designed for that sort of filter to be put in.
Okay.
Those filters restrict the airflow quite considerably because they do filter the small particles. but by doing that, it reduces the amount of air that can pass through the ventilation systems. So in turn, reducing the air exchange. So it would put quite a strain on our systems that we have now in place to be able to change into those type of filters.
Okay.
That's what I'm being told by Siemens.
Okay.
So we have our filters that are in there. That's why instead of doing that, that's why the O2 Prime system that we've looked into is the more feasible system to use. Instead of the filters filtering the particulates out, the O2 Prime system encapsulates it and kills it that way.
We do have filters. It's just that we're not designed for that particular filter for. Okay.
Exactly. So we do have filters in all of our units, and those filters are changed regularly by the custodial staff.
Okay.
And that is part of the audit and survey that we're doing through Siemens. That's already been approved for the work to be done, for them to go through and make sure the systems are working properly and that everything is adequate.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I think Molly, I'm sorry, you had a question too.
Go ahead, whoever has a question.
Dave, when you were in the state site, did you actually put the order in for the medium gloves?
I did not. I wasn't honestly sure. I know I cannot wear the medium-sized gloves, so I don't know if anybody. They're very small. I've tried to put them on before, and I cannot fit in the medium-sized gloves. So, if you have staff members that might be able to fit into those gloves, and we can order a smaller amount. I know we have 17,000 gloves that we can order total. It didn't specify a size, so if we want to put in an order for some medium, I think that's absolutely fine, and I can make sure to see if we can do that tomorrow morning.
I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, we do have some staff that have smaller hands, I think, that
Sure. So I mean,
here, I've been picking some up at hardware stores, so it'd be great if we can get the gloves in.
Yeah, I mean, I could put an order for 5,000, and that still leaves us what 12,000 to order for large if you want to do that.
And we did order other gloves. There's another I can't remember what the number is, 500 and something that we did order through McGill.
Right.
They had. So we do have some other gloves coming. I just think the more we have in here, and I think medium size. Are they medium size adult gloves?
It didn't specify. I know that it just says medium. Just said medium size.
Yeah, so it doesn't say male or female on the box. No.
No.
I don't know if 5,000 is too many though. I might think to cut that down maybe to 2,000 just to get started, because we have the other gloves on the way, and then we can wait and see how big they are, and if they're big enough for people, then we can order more. But at least let's get some in and then go from there. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I can do
Yeah,
that.
if you could,
So
that'd be great.
Tomorrow morning I will put the order in, and instead of worrying about the state delivering them, I know they do allow pickups at their central warehouse, especially it's such a small amount. I can just send John Burns somebody up to go pick them up, and I'm sure we'll be able to get them a lot quicker instead of waiting for them to deliver that small amount.
That'd be great.
Yep. Okay.
Molly, great. Thank you, Gabe. Molly, I'm curious. With 14 days until the 8th, are we pushing dates? Maybe this isn't a question for us, but is it realistic that we'll have the ventilation, the isolation rooms complete? Is that that's a requirement, right? And then are we scheduled for the review of our system for the O2 as well? I know you were looking at assessing for errors in our system or.
Right. So as far as the survey that they're doing, that is supposed to start taking place this week. And so that they're going through this week, and they'll make sure that everything is working properly. As far as the schedule for the isolation rooms, once they still need to order product to do that, to get that on hand. So once I get the proposal, hopefully I can get a firm date of when the install is for it, for those rooms. We just need, I need to make sure that those rooms, we have ventilation that vents out. And the first thing they're doing, they're going to come in and close off the ventilation that goes into the existing systems. So that's their first priority, is to do that. I will talk to them if they cannot get it done by the start of school. Then I am working with them to see what we can do temporarily. For those,
it's a requirement for the students to come, right?
Yes, we must have a holding room. Yes, we are required.
Okay.
Yep.
And I was at the high school today, Gabe, and I saw that Siemens, they are there. They're cleaning out the, what are they called? The ventilators, they're not called that. But they were going through doing a comprehensive cleaning and making sure everything's working.
Yep. So that's perfect. They were supposed to get started on the schools today. So, yep. They said it's going to take approximately 10 days to go through all the schools to make sure everything is verified. So it's going to take a while. Yep. So on the resource list that Karen went over, on the bottom of it, the things that were put on hold, I saw there was the tent that was put on hold that was on there. I'm not sure if I put that on hold. I know all the other tents were, but I was on the assumption that Pittston was still doing a tent, but I could be mistaken. I'm not sure.
They are, Gabe, because they don't have a separate gym and cafeteria, so we wanted them to have another space for as long as we possibly could get that for them as they entered. For phys ed classes, for them to be able to eat outside if they wanted to, mass breaks, because they just don't have enough. They have that one awning area where they have their picnic table out on the playground, but they really don't have a whole lot of space for kids.
Sure. Yeah, I just don't. I want to make sure that I'm not holding that part up if that does need to be put into place, and we can move forward on the things that were that was on hold. Definitely, if they need a tent, then I think we definitely need to get them something for over there, and to get the sunshades, because I know we've talked about those at the high school and middle school, and I'm sure if we need to order those, we probably need to do that now.
I agree. I didn't realize that those were on hold either.
Yeah.
So we should probably move forward with those ASAP.
Yep. And if I said to put them on hold, I must have misspoke. I don't remember saying to put those things on hold for sure. So we definitely need to get those things going.
I will call Amanda tomorrow. They've already done the requisitions. They're just waiting to actually push them through to order them. So
Okay.
I'll call Amanda tomorrow.
Yep, that'd be great.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Gabe?
No, I think that's pretty much it right there.
Okay. Any other questions for Gabe? There's a lot of balls up in the air right now. So hopefully Siemens will indeed get through the facilities and they will fix whatever they need to fix should they find issues as they're going through in these next 10 days. Hopefully I will process that contract tomorrow. I will send it to you, Gabe, first thing in the morning, so you can get us in the queue. And I apologize. I didn't realize that that's what that was. I just thought it was a summary of what they were doing. I didn't realize it was something for me to sign. So, okay. How about athletics? Nate.
Well, I really, really wish I had a update, but the MPA still has not made a decision on fall athletics for the state. They were supposed to make a decision last Tuesday, and they've pushed it off until this coming Thursday. I know they're meeting with the medical committee on Wednesday, so I think they want to wait until Thursday before making their recommendation. At this time, our athletic committee decided that it wouldn't be prudent to meet until we had a decision, because it's kind of like pulling the cart before the horse. So once that decision is made and we have the discussion at the school board level, then we'll reconvene with our athletic committee and decide where we're going to go and what procedures we're going to implement.
Great, thank you, Nate. Questions or comments for Nate? Oh, Becky? We can't hear you, Becky. You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having a hard time finding the mute button. Um, my concern is that they're going to decide that the MPA will make a suggestion or a ruling on Thursday, and that with very little to no warning, the board is going to need to make some decisions. And my concern is that I've actually had a phone call or two from some board members who don't feel that they want to be pressed into making this decision against a wall like this. So one of the things in the meeting that I was in on Saturday, it was floated out there that the MPA might make a decision tomorrow, but if they're not meeting with the medical committee until Wednesday, that's impossible.
Right. That's what we heard today. I had an AD's meeting this morning. Some other athletic directors were part of the fall sports committees, and that was the information that they got. There were committee meetings today, and there are committee meetings tomorrow. And one of the athletic directors who was in a committee meeting earlier this morning said that they're meeting with the medical committee on Wednesday, and they're not going to put any recommendation out until they meet with that committee.
And I know that the board wants to support athletics. The board wants to do what's in the best interest of the students, of course, but I also know that they need time to be able to consider what that responsibility will mean.
Right. And we don't know at what time on Thursday we're going to get that announcement. I mean,
right.
5 o'clock, right when the school board meeting is starting. It's
correct.
I don't know how detailed that that recommendation from the MPA is going to be.
I don't either.
I don't know if it's a downpour right now. I can move inside if anybody, it's a problem. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Becky. There's going to have to be some time to kind of read through it and process it and figure out what we've talked about a lot of things within our athletic committee. If we were to have fall sports, certain things that we would try to implement. Let me move inside real quick.
Well, and just because it's on the agenda, Becky, doesn't mean that the discussion has to occur Thursday night.
Correct.
That is something the board, as you know, can table for a future meeting if they feel like they haven't had enough time to absorb the information provided by the Maine Principals Association.
And the reason that I'm even mentioning it is that it's on social media, that the board has this special meeting on Thursday and that we're going to have this conversation and that we will be potentially voting on something. And it's just premature. And I just want the public to understand that it's not the board that is dragging its heels. The board to do what's right, but the board needs to have information. And so I'm just anxious for the public to hear that, know that, and believe, and just believe that we're doing the best that we can.
I think
right.
Public, honestly, Becky, I think the public knows it's the MPA.
Okay.
I think everybody knows it's the MPA. That it's waiting for whatever reason. I thought the MPA and the Department of Education probably would have been having these discussions long before now.
Well, I can tell you that they've been at every meeting that I'm at the state level. Mike Burnham has been there, except maybe 2 times. And when he's not there, Mike, the other Mike
Bisson
is there. So it's not that they've not been apprised of what's happening and what the science is and what the data is. It's not. So I don't understand. I don't want to speak badly about the MPA. However, it does really put everybody who's been working so hard for months in a very difficult position. And I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Because we want what's best for the kids.
Right. And it's difficult for everybody making plans. And once, let's say, for example, the MPA approves fall sports, the school board is okay with fall sports, and we start moving ahead with fall sports. Then all of a sudden it becomes a rat race to get schedules, to get officials, to get transportation, to get everything. We have to work out the details with spectators. So it's going to be crazy trying to figure out all those logistical plans after the fact.
with all the other things that you have going on at the same time.
Exactly.
And
So-
that's really difficult.
Right down to the wire.
That's all. I
Okay.
say that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nate.
You're
I
welcome.
know that there's really nothing more that we can add to the conversation at this time.
Great.
It's a wait and see game, and we'll see what happens this week.
Right.
All right, more to come. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, and Katie Gould, communications.
Sure. I have a short and sweet update. The slogan idea that we talked about last week is going to happen with a slight tweak. We didn't want any extra pressure to be, we want student buy-in and ownership of the idea that in Tiger territory we wear masks. But the idea that the subcommittee is going to run with at this point is that there will be a little promotion for the slogan contest. It will go out to all students, and that will try to have a winner from each school building, but it doesn't have to be that way. We'll just select a number of winners and promote and use the image and the slogan on some of our signs. The bus loading and safety video was filmed last week, and we plan to put that up on our website next week before our first students will load the buses. The hand washing video has been posted. That was filmed the week before last and was actually used today in our staff COVID safety training videos. So the first of many that we'll incorporate into some trainings. And the committee decided that we're going to keep in touch with our ongoing projects over email, but we'll shift to meeting every other week until we feel like we're able to just finish up projects and shift, and pivot. That's the name of the game. We're not quite sure where our work ends as far as returning to school, and we will fill the role of communications committee for as long as we're needed. We did schedule meetings through September and October every other week, and we'll just adjust as we go. But in a nutshell, that is the work of the communications committee.
Mary, you're muted.
Sorry, I had to change to my iPad. My computer froze. So did I hear that the DOE doesn't support the use of gaiters and bandanas? And if that's the case, in the video, it talks about that those are okay.
It's a really good point, Mary, and really that's evidence of the ever evolving and shifting and changing guidance. I think Denise would best speak to, although you and I think, Denise, have had a lot of conversations about what is recommended for face coverings. And I think I hadn't thought about the implications for that footage. But Denise, you're probably the expert to weigh in.
I did, unless I missed it, I did not see explicitly that gaiters are not supported by the DOE. I think we as I feel a very knowledgeable committee just need to recognize there's one recent study by Duke University out there, and what it says is the gaiter may actually, when those larger droplets go out and drop down, the gaiter may actually increase the volume of the small aerosolized, which go deep into the lungs. And actually, there's that theory that it could be a possible negative. But that's one study. I haven't seen any definitive DOE or CDC that says thou shall not, although the CDC does not picture the gaiter as an option. So I would just recommend, just given the challenges that folks have with masks, that we are not in a position to decline the use of the gaiter unless further research comes out. It's probably not something that we're going to tout as the top choice, but it is given as a choice. It is not something that you may not use in our district based on what we know right at this moment in time. Does that help, Mary?
Yeah,
to our audience.
Yeah, I just thought I heard it on the news, and so I wanted to check on that.
And so if that does come out from the DOE and it is ever changing, then I think we may shift our stance, but I think that's part of us being a nimble and knowledgeable team about the current research.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Mary. I think if we have questions and we are talking the talk and
Yeah.
going through the steps daily, then we can bet that our families are wondering the same things, especially when it's a topic that gets such high publicity, on the nightly news.
Absolutely.
Katie, I have a few questions.
Sure.
The bus loading video, you said you're going to put that up on the website. Any chance that you could use ThrillShare and push that out to families? Because families won't know necessarily to go to the website to look for that particular video. And I think that's really important for them to be able to see what the bus loading requirements are going to be. So that's one. And then I would do the same for the hand washing video. If we just put that up on our website, I would maybe send both of them out at the same time via ThrillShare. At one time, we really talked also about creating videos at each building specific, so that families could see and students could see what it will look like when they get off the bus, or if parents are going to drop them off, exactly where they're going to be. I know that you've put some of that in writing to families, but I think it's really helpful to also have the video. I didn't hear you mention that, nor the other thing that we talked about was doing a video for like the Seesaw platform or Google Classroom for parents, so that they understand how those platforms work. Is that also something that you're considering, or is that technology department?
Yeah, those are on our ongoing projects list for sure. As far as the on-site videos, we're going to break up and have members of the communications committee housed in different buildings take on those projects, and we'll ultimately lean on technology to do the filming of the projects. But we felt like two things. One, some of those aren't ready yet. The signs aren't in, the signage in buildings, it's supposed to arrive this week. I can speak to what's going on in our building. We don't have the flow for arrival and dismissal completely worked out. And that's part of a sort of a not team building, but a team approach to problem solving that we're going to engage in a little bit tomorrow. And we felt like the demand on the building administrator's time right now was such that we just needed to hold on to that, recognizing how important it is. I'll take any feedback that you have, Pat, based on my responses. And then what we've done so far is just post one sort of portfolio of online videos that come from YouTube. It was already created, already packaged. And so that's what we've done so far. That's a relatively sort of skimpy, for lack of a better vocabulary word, listed in resources. And I wanted to touch base with Angela after she launched our curriculum website this morning for staff. I know that hasn't gone live yet. I'm not sure, but it will any minute now. And I think that there's sort of a blending of those two functions, and some of those tutorials that we want to share via Return to School website should also go on our curriculum page. So it's not really a response, but I want you to know that both of those projects are on our ongoing list.
Okay.
And can be worked toward.
Okay, yeah, I know everyone has so much on their plate, and it is not necessarily an expectation that building principals be the individual who walk people through the building. It could be an ed tech, it could be another individual who kind of walks them through, and this is what our new procedure looks like, because you have enough on your plate. But I do think that would be helpful. And again, I would just emphasize ThrillShare, 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 as much as we can send that information out. So if we do have the tutorials for Seesaw, tutorials for Google Classroom, any of those, rather than just putting them up on the website, really we need to push them out through ThrillShare as much as possible. And that's something that maybe the technology department can help us with. She's smiling as we keep saying the technology department can do this and they can do that. They're also really maxed right now. So I know that there's a reality here with how much people can do in the amount of time that we have left. Karen.
So Sue, to just throw this out there, I mean, some of it's going to be, we'll try it and then adjust. You know, we may find that the flow out here in the front of our school is unmanageable and we'll have to go to plan B. So it's hard to have too many videos of what we're going to do because it may work for cohort A day and be fine to go, or it may not work and then we're adjusting before cohort B gets here. So I'm just a little bit wary of, what the flow will be when we get to school. We're going to do the best we can. I mean, we'll have staff out there, we'll certainly be taking care of our kids, but I'm just a little nervous about having videos because we may have to adjust, and we may want to do that when things start to really get into a pattern or a rhythm.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. Thank you. What else? Yes, Molly.
I will say, just speaking to the Seesaw, there are a number of tutorials, like she said, in YouTube or available in other places. And I have actually already explored the ones you listed on the resources, and they are all helpful. So if it helps not having to recreate some of those wheels, I know the programs have been around, and so it might be better, focus the time on some of the other more personal pieces that we need, whether it's the flow of the building, or if you're waiting for the signage, that makes sense. But the Seesaw program, I can't speak to Google Classroom, but there are so many resources out there showing you tips and tricks and the way it's supposed to work. So even if it's our teachers are familiar with those and they're using the same ones and able to, rather than recreate or have to refilm something that might already be there.
Thank you, Molly. I just want to make sure that as we enter the fall, families have as many resources as possible so that they're not frustrated accessing our remote academy. So thank you. All right, anything else, or is that it? Wow, look at this. It's 5:51. Oh, Molly, did you have something else? It's okay.
Sorry, I think I'm just looking for clarification on knowing if we are required to have these isolation rooms. I don't know that I heard confirmation as to, is this happening? Are they going to be done, or is this impacting our schedule?
Gabe? I don't know if Gabe is still there.
I am sorry. I'm working off my iPad and it's not working. It's freezing. So, okay, there we go. So I do not have the date when they can start the install on as of right now. I talked to Daryl this morning from Siemens, and he will be getting back to me as soon as I have the proposal in hand. They are, even without the proposal, ordering the products. That's what's the call this morning to make sure he could go ahead and order. And I said, yes, it's going to be signed, so start ordering. So he did say that we can work together on making sure if all of the products are not in place for the isolation rooms, that we can block off the dampers that we need to block off so the air's not going into the system, and we can put a system in there to temporarily use as the negative pressure holding rooms until we get the permanent mechanical operating ventilation installed into those rooms. So we can make them work so that way we still can be on schedule for the start date of school of the 8th. So if that helps answer it. I know I don't have the date that's in place that I'm going to be able to say that when it's going to be done, but we will have the mechanicals installed at least temporarily to make sure that they are going to work in the proper fashion eventually. So if that answers it.
And Molly, this is Denise. I would also want to add, I think it's a very good question. And I think if we were going to, and we may need to communicate to the DOE, we would have to have the absolute date when it's going to be in and what the mitigation and the plan is in the interim. But I don't see it delaying the date of start of school. I do think Gabe has enough moving forward that the DOE would be comfortable that we have that we have a plan in terms of infection control.
It's a great question though, Molly. Thank you.
Yes, really good question.
Okay, is that it? Then we are a wrap, folks. We're going to call an end to this return to school steering committee. We're going to call a wrap to this meeting this evening. And really, I can't thank you all enough. You have given up countless hours throughout the summer to help us develop this plan. Your insights, your feedback has been very beneficial, incredibly beneficial. And whether we're prepared or not, which I feel like we are, the 8th will be here before you know it, and we will work out some of the minor details that we don't quite have answers to yet. So we're in a great shape. I really feel like our district is in a good position for our students and their staff to return safely. So thank you all. I really hope that this process has been helpful to all of you as it's been helpful to us. So, all right, then, good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.